There was a time when sunscreen was something we tolerated. Something thick, something chalky, something we layered reluctantly, as if it belonged to a different era of skincare discipline, rather than daily comfort. But in 2026, sunscreen has quietly changed its identity. It no longer behaves like a shield you can feel. It behaves more like a second skin that happens to understand UV radiation. And perhaps the most interesting shift is not just in texture, but in formulation philosophy. Korean sunscreen science, in particular, has moved into a phase where UV protection, barrier compatibility, and cosmetic elegance are no longer separate goals. They are treated as a single equation. So in this video, we're not just looking at the best sunscreens. We're looking at how modern UV filters, texture engineering, and skin-mimicking emulsions have rewritten what daily protection feels like. And more importantly, which of these actually disappear on the skin? Welcome to Beauty Omen, where skincare meets formulation philosophy.
Before we go into products, it's important to understand what has quietly changed behind the scenes. Modern Korean sunscreens are no longer relying only on older chemical filters like homosalate or avobenzone heavy systems. Instead, many formulations now use next-generation photostable UV filters, such as Tinosorb S and M for broad-spectrum stability, Uvinul A Plus for UVA protection and reduced irritation potential, advanced encapsulated filters that reduce direct skin interaction, hybrid systems combining mineral and chemical filters at micro-dispersed levels. What this means in real life is simple: less irritation, less instability under heat, and most importantly, far more elegant textures. Because once UV filters become more stable, formulators gain freedom. Freedom to remove greasiness, freedom to reduce whitening agents, freedom to design sunscreens that behave like skincare rather than sunscreen.
If we observe Korean sunscreen innovation closely, 2026 is defined by three texture directions: gel water emulsions that evaporate into a soft finish, fluid essences that behave like hydrating serums, hybrid creams that balance barrier support with UV defense. But the goal across all formats is the same: to become visually absent on the skin. And this raises a subtle question: what actually makes a sunscreen feel invisible? It's not just thinness, it's refractive index harmony between oils, silicones, and UV filters. When that balance is achieved, light stops bouncing off the product layer and instead passes through it naturally. The result is what many call no sunscreen skin. Now, let's move into the formulations that define this shift. Beauty of Joseon Relief Sun Aquafit version 2026. This is a reformulated evolution of the previous generation. The texture leans closer to a watery gel essence hybrid. It spreads almost like a hydrating toner, then settles into a soft satin finish with no visible residue. The UV system combines modern photostable chemical filters designed for long wear under humid conditions. What stands out here is not just protection, but how little the skin resists it. It is particularly suited for combination and normal skin types who dislike any perception of layering. And in warmer climates like India or Southeast Asia, it behaves almost like a cooling veil rather than a sunscreen layer. Round Lab Birch Juice Moisturizing Sun Fluid. This formulation sits at the intersection of hydration and UV defense. The base uses birch sap-derived humectants that support moisture retention without heaviness. Texture-wise, it is extremely fluid, almost like diluted essence milk. On application, it disappears within seconds, leaving a natural skin-like finish. There is no noticeable shine, but also no powdery dryness.
It is particularly well suited for combination or dehydration-prone skin types that dislike heavy creams.
What makes it interesting is how it behaves under makeup. It doesn't interfere with foundation adhesion, which suggests a very balanced emulsion system. Isntree Hyaluronic Acid Watery Sun Gel 2026 update. This sunscreen feels like a continuation of the water gel sunscreen philosophy, but refined. It contains layered hyaluronic acid complexes that bind moisture without increasing tackiness. The UV filters are stabilized for longer photo protection under direct sunlight exposure. On skin, it starts slightly dewy, but settles into a hydrated natural finish within minutes. This is the kind of sunscreen that makes you forget you applied sunscreen at all. It is best suited for normal to dry skin types, especially those experiencing barrier fatigue or seasonal dehydration. Dr. G Green Mild Up Sun Plus. reformulated hybrid barrier version. This is one of the more interesting hybrid mineral chemical systems in the Korean space. It uses micronized zinc oxide blended with modern chemical filters, reducing the traditional white cast problem significantly. The texture is slightly creamier, but still breathable. What stands out is its calming effect on reactive skin. It does not just protect against UV, it feels like it reduces surface inflammation triggers. Best suited for sensitive skin, post-treatment skin, or those using actives like retinoids or exfoliating acids.
It carries a more skin-repairing sunscreen identity than cosmetic elegance alone. Torriden Dive-In Watery Sun Serum. This formulation behaves like a true hybrid between skincare serum and UV protection. It has a lightweight serum texture that absorbs almost instantly. The finish is semi-dewy but not oily, which suggests a well-controlled emollient system. The UV protection relies on modern, stabilized chemical filters designed for high UV index environments. It is especially suited for oily and acne-prone skin, where heaviness often leads to avoidance of sunscreen altogether. This is one of the most bare skin compatible sunscreens in this category.
Even the most elegant sunscreen can fail if application is inconsistent. Modern Korean sunscreens are designed for thin, even layering, not thick rubbing, not over-massaging. The ideal method is 2 finger lengths for face and neck combined. Apply in 2 thin layers rather than 1 heavy layer. Allow 30 to 60 seconds between layers for proper film formation. And perhaps most importantly, reapplication should never disturb the base layer aggressively. Instead of rubbing, think of pressing or patting a thin refresh layer over existing protection. This preserves both UV integrity and cosmetic finish. For oily skin, gel fluids or serum textures work best. Look for matte satin finishes and minimal emollient load. For dry skin, hybrid cream gels with humectant systems maintain comfort without disrupting barrier balance. For sensitive skin, mineral hybrid sunscreens with calming agents are more stable across irritation-prone conditions. For acne-prone skin, non-comedogenic fluid textures with fast evaporation profiles reduce pore congestion risk. The key is not just SPF number, it is texture compatibility with your daily sebum rhythm. Sunscreen in 2026 is no longer a separate step in skincare. It is now integrated into the language of hydration, barrier health, and cosmetic experience. And perhaps that is the quiet revolution. Not louder protection, but invisible protection that respects skin behavior. Because the best sunscreen is not the one you remember applying. It is the one your skin never argues with. If you're interested in continuing this exploration, the next step would be understanding how to repair the skin barrier after actives like retinoids and exfoliating acids. Or perhaps building a morning routine where sunscreen is no longer the final step, but the foundation of everything that follows. Either way, I'll see you in the next layer of the routine.